Sometimes toxic relationships don't look toxic at all. No screaming, no cheating, no obvious abuse. Just a strange feeling that you're slowly disappearing. You start questioning your reactions, apologizing for things you didn't do, feeling anxious before replying to a text, overthinking simple conversations for hours, and the worst part? You still call it love. Because toxic relationships rarely begin with pain. They begin with comfort, attention, connection. The feeling that someone finally understands you. Until one day, you realize you don't recognize yourself anymore. And if that hit something inside you, this video might explain why. At first, everything felt intense. They wanted to talk all day. They remembered tiny details about you. They made you feel chosen. And honestly, after feeling unseen for so long, that kind of attention feels addictive. You tell yourself, this is different. This is real. But slowly, something changes. Not suddenly, quietly. You stop saying certain things because you don't want conflict. You rehearse messages before sending them. You feel relief when they're in a good mood and fear when they're not. That's usually the first sign. Not pain, fear. A healthy relationship gives your nervous system peace. A toxic one keeps it alert. You don't feel emotionally safe. You feel emotionally responsible. Responsible for their reactions, their moods, their silence, their anger, their distance. And without realizing it, you start carrying the emotional weight of two people. Think about this honestly. When something good happens in your life, do you feel excited to tell them? Or nervous about how they'll react? That question reveals more than people think. One of the most overlooked signs of a toxic relationship is this. You slowly become smaller, not because they directly asked you to, but because shrinking feels safer. Maybe they mock your interests. Maybe they call you too sensitive. Maybe every disagreement somehow becomes your fault. So eventually, you stop expressing yourself fully. You laugh less loudly. You explain less. You share less. You become careful. And careful love is exhausting, because love was never supposed to feel like walking on broken glass barefoot. Here's where it gets dangerous. Toxic relationships often train you to distrust your own emotions. You say, that hurt me, and they say, you're overreacting. You say, that felt disrespectful, and they say, you always make me the bad guy. After enough of this, you stop listening to yourself. You start needing their version of reality more than your own. That's why people stay confused in toxic relationships for years. Not because they're weak, because their inner voice slowly got replaced. And sometimes, the toxicity doesn't look aggressive at all. Sometimes it looks like inconsistency. One day they're warm, the next day they disappear. One day they adore you, the next day they act cold for no reason. Your brain starts chasing the good version of them. You hold on to moments, tiny moments. The late-night conversations, the apologies, the affection after arguments. And those moments become powerful enough to make you ignore everything else. Because humans can survive pain surprisingly well, if hope is attached to it. That's the trap. You're not addicted to the pain, you're addicted to the relief that comes after it. And once you understand that, a lot of relationships start making sense. There's another sign people rarely talk about. You feel lonely even when you're together. You can spend hours beside someone and still feel emotionally abandoned. Because real connection isn't physical proximity, it's emotional safety. It's being able to speak without fear, to feel without punishment, to exist without constantly managing someone else's emotions. And when that safety disappears, your body notices before your mind does. That constant anxiety, the overthinking, the emotional exhaustion, sometimes your body is revealing what your heart is still trying to deny. When was the last time you felt completely relaxed around them? Not excited, not attached, not distracted. Relaxed, safe enough to be fully yourself. If you have to think hard about that, there's a reason. A toxic relationship can also make you abandon yourself slowly. You stop spending time with people you love. You stop doing things that make you feel alive. Your world becomes smaller and smaller, until your entire emotional state depends on one person. And that level of dependency feels like love at first. But eventually, it feels like drowning, because no human being should become your entire sense of worth. The hardest part is this. Most toxic relationships are not toxic all the time. If they were, everyone would leave immediately. There are good moments, beautiful moments, moments that make you question yourself. Maybe I'm exaggerating. Maybe things are getting better. Maybe this is just how relationships are. But love should not constantly leave you emotionally confused. Love should not make you afraid to communicate. Love should not make you feel guilty for having needs. Love should not make you feel emotionally unsafe. And deep down, most people already know this. They just don't want the realization to be true. Because realizing a relationship is toxic creates another painful question. If this isn't love, why did I accept it for so long? And the answer is usually deeper than the relationship itself. Sometimes people tolerate toxic love because chaos feels familiar. Maybe you grew up earning affection through pleasing people. Maybe you learned that love means sacrifice. Maybe you were taught that your feelings matter less than keeping the peace. So when someone gives you inconsistency, emotional confusion, or conditional affection, your nervous system mistakes it for intimacy, not because it's healthy, because it's familiar. But familiarity is not the same thing as love, and pain being familiar does not make it normal. Here's the realization most people reach too late. A toxic relationship doesn't always destroy you dramatically. Sometimes it destroys you quietly, by making you doubt yourself, silence yourself, abandon yourself, until one day you wake up emotionally exhausted, trying to remember who you were before all of this started. But the moment you become aware of it, something changes. Because awareness breaks cycles. The moment you stop romanticizing emotional pain, you start seeing things clearly. You realize love is not supposed to feel like constant anxiety. You realize healthy love does not require losing yourself. You realize peace is not boring, it's safe. And maybe for the first time, you stop asking, how do I make them love me better? And start asking, why did I believe I had to suffer to deserve love at all? That question can change your entire life. If this video felt painfully familiar, don't ignore that feeling. Sometimes your mind explains away what your heart and body have been trying to tell you for months. You deserve relationships where you can breathe, where you can speak honestly, where love does not feel like emotional survival. And most importantly, you deserve a relationship where you do not have to lose yourself just to keep someone else.